Okay, I've got balloons and streamers, and Kirk is bringing drinks, and Jason's got the cake. We're set for party time. Welcome to Triple Click, where we bring the games to you. This week we talk about parties in role-playing games. Yeah, it's the other kind of party, where there's an ensemble cast united by a common goal, or maybe they're not united and they keep squabbling, or dating you. I'm Maddy Myers.
I'm Jason Schreier.
And I'm Kirk Hamilton, and hello.
Hello, it's
my
us.
friends.
We're
It
back.
is us.
We're back.
Yes.
We are recording this on Election Day. By the time this goes out, maybe there will be some clarity on what has happened today.
Or maybe
but
there
we
won't.
Are,
we don't
we
know.
are recording this hours before polls close. So it's an
So if
interesting
something
time
happened,
over
we don't know about it.
here. We are in blissful ignorance.
We're in the past right now. We've all voted, of course, or at least I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I just made a big assumption here. We all voted, right? Everyone decided to vote?
I did vote, yes.
Okay, good. I think that's a
Yes.
good idea.
The vote in Portland, pretty interesting this year. We got ranked choice. We got a whole bunch of people running. We overhauled our government last year.
Oh, you got ranked choice. Oh, that's amazing. Massachusetts
was
voted
pretty fun.
against ranked choice 2 years ago, and I'm still mad about it, but this year we had some pretty good ballot questions. But you know what?
Nice.
I don't need to get into that. You know what I do need to get into? I'm going to talk about MaximumFun.org/join. I just think that's a cool URL to go to. And why do I think that? Because if you were to go there, and if you were to become a member of Maximum Fun, you'd get access to all of our bonus episodes here at Triple Click. And we do one every month. And
We do.
normally that's just whatever. It's cool. We talk about spoilers for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth or, Call of Duty Modern Warfare. We play video game. We talk about it. We watch Die Hard. We watch the live action Mario movie. But also we play Dungeons and Dragons. And
Sure, sometimes.
just sometimes we play Dungeons and Dragons. Sometimes we get Matthew Mercer to be our DM for Dungeons and Dragons. And we do a 3-part series of episodes about that. So we've also, because that's so special and so cool, and we didn't want to just have the people who are members of Maximum Fun have access to it, we put out episode 0, which is kind of like us building our characters with Matthew, and then also episode 1 in the main feed, and part 2 is out in the bonus feed right now. So if you listen to part 1 and you're like, I don't want to wait anymore, I just want to know what happens next, you could go to MaximumFun.org/join and you could support the show and get those warm, fuzzy feelings. But you could also go ahead and listen to part 2 of our Dungeons and Dragons campaign, which will be 3 parts. Part 3 will be coming. And you'd get to listen to that right away if you were already in the feed. Or you could just be super patient and wait. But I think you should become a member, because then you're also supporting our ability to continue to do really cool projects like this one. And come on, why wouldn't you want to do that?
Also, if you become a member, then we'll give you ranked choice voting.
I don't know that we have the ability to do that.
You can rank the 3 of us.
We could do a ranked choice vote for something. If we haven't ever
that's
actually done
true.
a listener vote, but if we did,
Yeah.
we would do ranked choice.
If we ever do invite the listeners to vote on something, only people who are members will get ranked choice and everyone else will just get regular voting. I don't know. We might
There you
workshop
go.
this idea off the air. Jason came up with this. I'm just yes-anding it. But that's enough of that. That's enough talking about MaximumFun.org/join. You already know. You know the drill, listeners. What are we going to talk about as our hot topic today, Kirk?
We are going to talk about RPGs, about role-playing games, and more specifically about RPG parties, and less specifically, kind of just about the RPGs of 2024. We are kind of in the midst of Dragon Age Veilguard discussion. We talked about it last week where the two of you had played, but I had not yet played. I now have the game and have been playing it, and I think we're going to do a dedicated episode just about that game and what we think of it and Dragon Age and all of that next week. But this week we're kind of, we're in a little bit of a middle ground, and it's this game and a lot of the games I've been playing lately have got me thinking about parties in particular, like the group of heroes that you assemble in a game and how they can be used to tell stories and how they can make a game more interesting or more confusing, how they can kind of help or hinder a video game story. And this year, we've had so many amazing role-playing games, and even beyond like the RPG category, we've just had so many games with great groups of characters all kind of working together through the story, that I thought that might be something fun to talk about, to look at the differences and the similarities and the way that all of these games are set up.
My favorite RPG party is at the beginning of Fallout 3 when it's your birthday and you get a cake and candles.
Yeah, I was wondering if we were going to get into that.
I was going to specify that I think the best RPG party is the one at the end of Act 1 of Baldur's Gate 3. That's a very fun party.
That's a good party,
hook
too.
Up maybe for the first time with a party member. Everybody gets very drunk. And
it
would
have been good if the whole episode had been that bit. Like if we had just come prepared with a series of parties in RPGs.
We could talk about Mass Effect Citadel. There's a really good party actually in the Dragon Age Trespasser DLC. Both of those DLCs have very memorable parties. So we could talk about them. And actually, that kind of a party is a good showcase for the party that you've built. Like both of those games. Like those are both celebrations of, more than anything else, they're celebrations of the party members and your relationships with them, since that's kind of the beating heart of both of those series. And, we'll get into Veilguard as well, since there is a whole new party of adventurers and heroes and anti-heroes in that game. So, yeah, I don't know. To list a few games that I'm thinking about here, there is, of course, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. There's Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, which I've played. I don't think that the two of you have played, but has certainly one of the most interesting and endearing bands of miscreants ever assembled in a video game. There's Dragon's Dogma 2, which I really loved. It takes a very different approach to NPC and party creation. There's Paper Mario, The Thousand Year Door, which Jason, I believe, is most familiar with, but also has a kind of interesting party. There's Persona 3 Reload, which I only played a bit of, but I played almost all of Persona 3, and I'm very familiar with that kind of Persona approach to party building, which is shared, of course, by Metaphor ReFantazio, which we just played and talked about, and I believe almost, Jason, you're not quite done, but all three of us have almost finished that game. Mm-hmm. And then now there is Dragon Age the Veilguard, which yet again, another BioWare game with a big group of heroes. And then that's not to mention Tactical Breach Wizards, which I actually think is like the best party-based game of the year and the best party story of the year.
For sure, yeah.
It's not a role-playing game, and it's sort of a different approach, but I think it'd be an interesting point of comparison. So all of these different games take a different approach to like ensemble-based storytelling, and I thought that could be kind of our road in. So I guess to start with, can I just say that I am enjoying Dragon Age the Veilguard? I think some people are probably curious about that. Since I was. Right, since I sat out last week's conversation. I think it's pretty fun. It's
what class did you pick?
Oh, I'm playing as a rogue.
It's an important question.
Up to where I have every party member, and it sort of finally feels like an RPG. Like I'm just going out into the world, and it's unlocking bigger and bigger parts of the map, and I'm exploring and finding side quests and doing, going on dates with people that kind of remind me of Marvel's Midnight Suns, where you just hang out.
Yeah.
And you like go help someone train in a new magical power they've got, and you get to like chat a little bit about their backstory or whatever.
Why do you have to wait that long for it to become an RPG? Like I haven't gotten that far because I just don't want to play anymore because it's not an RPG.
I think I know why that is. I have a theory anyways, and I think it's because they consciously designed the game this way after Dragon Age Inquisition led so many people to get stuck in the hinterlands just doing empty side quests. Mm-hmm. I think that they structured the game to deliberately kind of push you through like a series of canals. You just like ramp through the whole introductory act, and it's kind of a long time because it's a big game and there's a lot of characters. I think that I'm guessing that was on purpose, that they wanted you to get to know everybody, to kind of see all the different regions that you're going to go explore, to meet all the factions, and then to start enticing you out into the world. And they kind of even unlock different parts of the world, like more and more as you go, to keep from overwhelming you with like a huge open world space that you then spend the next 20 hours just wandering around doing kind of empty side quests. There's also the fact that the side quests are like much more structured and narrative in this game. As far as I can tell, all of them are. Like there's no quests that are just like, go collect 4 of these. Yeah. There's always some little story or something.
Connected usually to a specific NPC and what they want to do. Yeah, that's what I found too.
That's my sense of why it's structured that way. I think we'll probably talk more next week about whether that works. I could see playing it and thinking, oh, geez, this is just a totally linear, like God of War-like game. But now that I'm playing it, like where I am, it actually feels a lot more like Inquisition. There's like big open areas. I'm exploring. I'm like solving environmental puzzles, finding little exclamation points on the map where I'm like, oh, someone's got a quest over there. I'll go check it out.
So, classic. I think one of those classic, it just takes 10 hours before it gets good. game.
Hey, it's not the only game on this list where that could arguably be
No,
the
and I
case.
wouldn't actually say that it takes that long to get good. I was having plenty of fun in those first 10 hours. It just was, I was like, I don't think this is what this game is going to be like for its entire run. And that turned out to be true. So anyways, yeah, let's look at all of these games. Let's zoom out a little bit on the year in RPGs. I'm just sort of curious if either of the two of you has any thoughts on this idea, on the groups of characters that you have accompanied on these various adventures over the course of the year.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about Metaphor because that's the game I've been playing the most over the last few weeks, and I've been thinking about like what makes that game's party cool? What makes it not cool? What makes the game's party interesting? Is it like a specific chemistry with the characters? Is it the individual characters themselves? Or are they kind of stronger together than the sum of their parts? And in this game's case, I think they are, because none of the characters in Metaphor on their own are particularly memorable on the level of Barrett in Final Fantasy or whatever, or some other kind of iconic video game character. But that's not to say they're bad. I mean, Heisme is an adorable.
Yeah, I was going to say Heisme might be the one who.
Hulkenberg is also kind of a breakout.
True.
I with her weird obsession with ugly food and stuff. I think that she has a fandom.
It's cute. Yeah, I mean, some of the quirks are pretty fun. But I think that together they work really well. Part of it is visually, they just make such a painting, such a kind of like vivid display of different sizes and looks and characterizations in a way that is really striking. Kind of a fun contrast to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, where the party looks really weird together because Barrett is not like this hulking titan.
People.
Yeah, and everyone's so disproportionate and so off. They look like Barrett looks like he came from a different game than like Cloud and Tifa. Whereas in Metaphor, it feels like you're looking at this beautiful, striking painting every time you see the seven of them just kind of grouped together, or in a portrait or whatever. And they play a lot with those still settings that you go to, and you see all of their silhouettes and the imagery, and it's really, really cool. A lot of cool looks. But also, I think part of it is just seeing the banter between them, like Hulkenberg's that personality trait you mentioned, Kirk, about her being in love with this nasty food. It is played off by the other characters really, really well. And so someone like Stroll, who is otherwise just kind of whatever, doesn't really have too much of a personality. I think watching him interact with Hulkenberg is really fun, in the same way that watching Ryuji in Persona 5 interact with some of the other characters is a lot more fun than just dealing with Ryuji on his own. The other thing is that Metaphor is really good at creating not side quests, but these kind of follower story sequences, and telling each character's story in a really cool way through that actually, because each of the social links that you do with them is so much lower impact than doing a whole ass side quest would be. I think that it gives you a lot more story and a lot more chance to develop a relationship with them and learn about their personalities in more of a rapid fire, more of kind of a traditional storytelling way, the way you might see in a book or a movie, where it's not broken up by an hour of going hunting for monsters in between it all. And so that helps develop the characters, I think, in a cool way. So yeah, I mean, I think that's at least part of why I think Metaphor's characters are really resonating with me.
Yeah, I would agree, but I do think that some of these other examples are similar, in the sense that I remember in the past when we were talking about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the main thing we talked about was the banter. And thinking back on this topic this week, I was really remembering that and how much I loved that part of the game, maybe more than any other part of the game, was just the hangout sensation of having a party of characters who are wandering around with you, and having a character, one of the questions that you have in our outline, Kirk, is what are the different ways the game relates the party members to the main character? And in Metaphor, I don't think the main character is particularly interesting. They're kind of a cipher, and you don't really, I don't really have a big relationship with him as a person, but He's just a facilitator almost for all these other goofy dynamics that happen around him. And Cloud is very similar, in part because he's just so traumatized and emotionally closed off that he's not going to engage willingly with almost any conversation. So you can just throw him into any social scenario and it'll automatically be funny or awkward or have tension or conflict, just because you have this character who is closed off and all these other people bouncing off of him and trying to get him to react to things or figure out who he really is. And that, I think, just automatically creates an interesting story with a character who would otherwise be extremely boring. Like if you were playing the entire game as Cloud or as the main character in Metaphor, and you didn't have anybody with you, like I can't even imagine how boring that would be. It would be like you'd have so much trouble caring about that character's
It's called
strife.
Dragon Quest, and it rules.
Okay, fair enough. I haven't played those games, so maybe it does rule, but it would definitely be a really different vibe and lonelier, I think, and maybe kind of sadder and not kind of the madcap hangout scenario that Final Fantasy VII and Metaphor both really have, and that I'm hoping Dragon Age has as I go along.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing with RPGs that have a main character. It's an issue that other types of ensemble storytelling don't have, and not all video games with ensemble casts have this problem because not all ensemble video games have a main character.
True.
That's actually something that I think is interesting about Tactical Breach Wizards, is there is not a main character of that game. You start playing as Zan and what's her name? No,
Jen.
I'm forgetting her name. Jen, thank you. You start playing as Zan and Jen, and they kind of feel like, the closest thing to point of view characters, but really everyone's an equal part protagonist, and you're just kind of controlling slightly the flow of conversation, and then in the end you get to have these nice little epilogues where you decide how everybody ends up. And like that actually makes for a more organic kind of ensemble story because, it's not the story of any one person. I've been, like I mentioned last week, I've been watching The Legend of Vox Machina, which is the Critical Role TV show. And that show is very similar to Dragon Age and also to Triple Quest, which I think we should also mention here as one of the RPGs of 2024.
So true.
Since it is a
game we played.
Yes, it is. And it involved us coming up with a party, and it is also an ensemble story. And it's different from these video games because there is not a main character. I mean, arguably Luther is the main character.
I was going to say, there is one main character.
But there's another version of that story that's just Luther's story that would be very entertaining.
The Rosencrantz and Guildenstern of Triple Quest.
But no one of us is the main character. And so it made for it's like easier to tell a story that kind of goes in a variety of different ways. And that's certainly true in something like a TV show like, Game of Thrones or The Legend of Vox Machina, anything like something with a big sprawling cast. There isn't really a main character. Like someone may get the focus for a given episode, but that just allows for a more dynamic storytelling approach. And I find that video games really do run into the protagonist problem. As I've been thinking about this, I think that Metaphor and FF7 and Persona 3 all have this similar issue where there are nice moments between cast members, like there's nice banter and there's a good sense of their community, like how they relate to one another, especially in FF7 Rebirth. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking specifically of Tifa and Aerith kind of hanging out and becoming friends and the way that their relationship has been fleshed out.
The best.
Yeah, it's really nice. But for the most part, the games kind of do revolve around the main character. That's something that I really noticed with Metaphor. While like characters have these surface level reactions to one another, but it isn't that often that they're sitting down and really talking or getting to know one another in the way that they might be able to if they didn't always relate back to the main character. Like each of those vignettes, each of those character vignettes in Metaphor is like you and that character. And so they're just like telling you their story and then reflecting, and you kind of learn more about them, and then you maybe say one or two things to them and then it moves on. But it's like they're all very kind of atomized. There's not really this sense of like everyone sitting around and talking. And while there are scenes like where you're having dinner after you go out and adventure. I really like that, how you always go back and you sit around and have dinner. I really wish there was a little more to those scenes. There's always this, like, if you have like an unfinished quest or something, it'll give you a dialogue topic option. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where you're at the table, and every once in a blue moon, you can like pick a thing and then you'll actually talk about it. I wish there was kind of more of that. There was just more color, because in that game, I do wish there was more of a sense of the community of characters and how they relate to one another.
So, okay, let's talk about the protagonist for a second, because I think the games that we've been pinpointing, the two have the protagonist and not the ensemble cast, have this array of different types of protagonists. In Metaphor, you have essentially a silent protagonist. I mean, technically he talks, but he's basically, like Maddy said, he's a cipher, so he doesn't like...
I'd rather he was silent.
I mean, it's basically, they only gave him a voice because it was awkward in Persona 5 that he didn't say anything, so now he has a voice. But it's basically the same character as your Persona 5 character, where it's not a character.
He's a blank slate.
Silent protagonist on one extreme, and then Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Cloud might be a little enigmatic, but he's a character straight up. Like, he's a full-fledged character. And then in the middle, you have Dragon Age, the Veilguard. And something that I don't like about Dragon Age, the Veilguard, is that I think, and I've seen a lot of people point this out who have gotten much further in the game than I did, so I don't think this changes very much. You are kind of presented with this idea of this character who you shape his personality, the same as you do in other BioWare games, and you do that by picking dialogue options and choosing what kind of character you want your quote-unquote rook, that's your nickname, to be. And I think one of the problems in Veilguard is that all the options all just kind of lead to the same place, which is that they all just are kind of like positive leadership, like this dude who is just not really ruffling any feathers. He's really just kind of always saying the right thing, kind of Captain America-ish in his dialogue. And I think that, like, if you're going to take that approach, I think that's the hardest approach to master, much, much harder than silent protagonists, and also much harder than full-fledged character protagonists, like a Cloud or a Kratos or whatever. If you're going to take the choose your own adventure, customize your protagonist, pick whatever way you want approach, you have to do it better than I think Veilguard does. And previous BioWare games did that. They allowed you to roleplay your character in all sorts of different ways. And Baldur's Gate 3, in contrast, which is unfortunately a contrast you have to make quite a lot when you're talking about the role-playing elements of Dragon Age 4, Baldur's Gate 3 lets you play around with the character in so many different directions. It can get a little ridiculous how many different options you have. And I think that, like, when you're interacting with your party, and when you're like, you want that banter, and when you're kind of evaluating your emotional relationships with your characters and your party members, I think a big part of that, when you do have that customizable hero, is seeing what kind of, like, options you can explore and what kind of reactions you can get out of them. I mean, it was unfortunate to kind of feel like Dragon Age wasn't giving you that many choices in that regard.
Yeah, I don't know that I agree that other Dragon Age games nailed that either, but I totally agree
same.
about Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily. No, I didn't say that necessarily. But I think previous BioWare games,
problem.
Mass Effect was always much better at letting you play as the kind of the bad guy. And then even before that, I mean, Baldur's Gate 2 and 1, which, do not forget, were BioWare games.
True.
They both let you go full on evil, like to the point where you're making major decisions in really evil, nasty ways.
Yeah, and I mean, I haven't played those, but Baldur's Gate 3, I completely agree. Like, that's a new standard of protagonist customization, and like the entire Dark Urge plotline existing is incredible and fascinating, and it's like an entirely different game within the game where like everything plays out differently. And the fact that there's so much content you don't see. I mean, we've talked about this before, but like when you introduce all these additional choices that actually change the sequence of events, you're creating things that many players won't see and that only certain players will. And I would say Veilguard kind of follows in the footsteps of previous Dragon Age games in the sense that it doesn't change everything. Like you can make these slightly different personality based comments in conversation, but it's not like the plot is going to wildly change. However, I mean, I think there might be some bigger changes near the end of the game, but that just isn't really the style of the game.
And I'm not even necessarily talking about choices that change things. I'm talking about choices in how you can interact with your party. Because if you're going to create this system where the hero is this customizable version of yourself, you kind of expect to be able to have certain levels of chemistry or lack thereof with your party. And I think it's a tough thing to pull off. But in something like Baldur's Gate 3, where you could be making choices, you can allow one of your party members to kill another. You can choose whether to let someone suck your blood every night and just kind of go about. I mean, making these choices is a big part of what makes a party cool or not cool, is getting to interact with them and play around with them. And really, I mean, that's what distinguishes role-playing games from, I don't know, watching a movie about a heist movie or something like that.
Yeah, and they feel more like people.
So leaving Veilguard aside a little bit, I'm not totally sure how the dynamics are going to play out, other than I'm enjoying getting to know the characters and, going on dates with them. I actually think that the inter-party banter is also cool. Like, each character seems to have one sort of conversation path that they go down with each other potential party member. And it's neat. They're all specific, and you wouldn't necessarily see them all depending on the party that you're playing with. And I've enjoyed that. That's actually given me more insight into the party, listening to them talk to one another, than any of the conversations I've had with them one-on-one, which you could argue is a failure of the writing, but it's also a success of the writing, because like listening to Nev talk to Tosh about prosthetics, because Tosh has a prosthetic horn and Nev has a prosthetic leg, and Tosh is like giving Nev advice, and it's cool. Like, I think like that kind of banter is what I have always liked about BioWare games. I don't know that I totally I'm thinking of where the protagonist of Veilguard lands related to these other games. I don't actually think of Cloud as a very good main character or a very defined one. He doesn't really have much of a personality. And, he's this kind of hapless, beautiful goon who these two much more vibrant and interesting women are obsessed with him. And that's the main dynamic, is the Betty and Veronica and Archie vibe.
Well, his personality is he's trying to repress his emotions, and that comes out in different ways.
I feel like that's a little bit of an easy...
But I mean, that does tell a certain story, right? Yeah. I mean, it does let you project yourself onto a character more easily.
I don't know if I agree with you on that, Kirk.
No, I know you don't, but let me lay out how I think of it. I think of Cloud as a less well-defined character, maybe because of conscious narrative decisions, but he is kind of a blank slate in a lot of ways, than Rook in Veilguard, because at least I'm playing with the British lady accent, which, by the way, is a really interesting accent. It moves around from region to region. After having just played Metaphor, the two cat boys who sound like they're from Liverpool. They sound like the freaking Beatles every time they talk. I love their voice acting.
They're so great.
And they're very consistently Liverpudlian, which I believe is how you say that.
Yeah.
It's funny. I'll hear a little bit of that in Rook's accent, but then sometimes I'll hear other accents from other regions, and I'm not well versed enough to know. I saw someone say basically Rook sounds like someone who grew up in Liverpool and then moved, which is sort of a funny read on it. Anyways, I've been finding that character to be pretty well defined, between her look, her voice, the way that she performs in some scenes. There's some actually, I think, some really great animation in the game. So I feel like she's a character along with everybody else that I'm just allowed to kind of imprint onto. But I want to mention Ichiban Kasuga, the protagonist of Like a Dragon and Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. This is the game that came out earlier this year, because he is the most well-defined protagonist of all of these games, and kind of belongs in this conversation about how a protagonist and how a protagonist is written can change the way that a party feels, because the entire success of that game, and it's a really successful game. I've gone back to it recently. I've been playing it again. It's so good. I like it as much or more than any of the other RPGs that I just listed here, at least from what I've played of it. And it's all down to him. He is an incredible protagonist. He's a really well-defined character. He's really well performed. And the whole game just orbits around him and his unstoppable charisma. He's basically a guy whose can-do spirit and belief in redemption and other people drives the entire engine. And everyone in your party, they're all a bunch of former criminals, or sometimes they're people that you'll meet in the game who totally screw you over and lead you into an ambush and say really mean things to you, and they're really horrible. But then you beat them in a fight, and then you get to talking.
Classic.
And they start being oh man, it's just so hard ever since my brother got sick, and this and that. And then Ichiban is like, oh, well, I totally understand. And like they start talking. And pretty soon the guy's in your party. And then pretty soon you're getting to know him even better. And you're realizing like, oh, this guy should have been my friend all along. And that's kind of the magic of that game, and also a big narrative theme of it. So anyways, I think that game deserves a place in this conversation because it shows how you can have a very strongly defined protagonist. The game would not work without him. But because he's so well written and because his personality is the thing that like centers the orbit of every other character, it works beautifully for that game and it defines the game's whole personality.
Yeah, I love that.
It's so good.
I want to play it now.
So is that game, are you just recruiting a ton of different characters, or is there like a defined party of like a certain number of people? Like how does the party system work exactly?
It's like most RPGs where you start with just kind of one friend and then you meet another. You know, you meet up with Kiryu in Hawaii and he's like, you know, the former protagonist of a bunch of the Yakuza games. And the game is kind of a lot about Kiryu. You could argue that Kiryu is the protagonist in that it's revealed pretty early on in the game that he's sick and dying. And I don't know yet whether he dies or not. I'm still fairly early in the game, but that's like the big revelation is that this titan of the Yakuza series, the protagonist of many of the games, has cancer and like doesn't have long to live. And so he and Ichiban are friends and you play as Ichiban, but it's kind of Kiryu's story, which is another kind of smart way of like giving a lot of emotional heft to a different character than your protagonist. But no, as you go through the game, you just kind of you pick up guys or ladies, like you pick up different characters who just join your party. And it's a really long game. Like I don't have all the party members yet, but it's structured like, I don't know, like a metaphor. It's structured like a JRPG where you just gradually get more and more party members.
Yeah.
It's so good, you guys. It's such an awesome game.
I mean, you're kind of describing something that I really wish Metaphor had done with its main character that doesn't happen, but that the characters keep telling you is happening. And I say this as someone who really enjoyed Metaphor a lot. Loved the game. Absolutely one of my favorites of this year. However, the characters around the main characters continually say things like, wow, you're such a great leader. I'm just naturally drawn to you. I just feel like I can't help but follow you and just love everything you stand for. And like the player, I'm like, I don't know what this guy stands for. He has no personality. I don't see why anyone would be naturally drawn to him in any way. And he doesn't say anything in meeting any of these characters that seems like it would convince them of that in the way that you're kind of describing the Like a Dragon protagonist is doing when he's having a fight with someone or whatever the situation is whereby he's meeting the other party members and convincing them to join him. Yeah. Like those sound like they're actual scenes where the characters are convinced. Whereas in Metaphor, it's more like that's happening all on the part of the party members. And like they all have complete stories and motivations to join you that are internally consistent and make sense for them and make them feel like more fully realized characters. And like you get why they would want to join somebody with the political aims. Like it's an explicitly like there's an election in the game. It's political. Your character's running to become king because there's a democracy now. I don't know. It's wild. Play Metaphor. I can't explain it. But why would they back him as a candidate is kind of never explained, other than that there's just sort of these unstated good feelings that he's representative of that would probably not work in real life.
Yeah, I mean, there are worse motives. I've seen worse motives in games for people going along. Well, what often happens, what I appreciate about Metaphor, among other recent games, is that the entire party has a reason for sticking with you to the bitter end, even when you're going off and fighting like optional dragon bosses and grinding for experience or whatever, like I'm doing now. As opposed to some party-based RPGs where sometimes you'll get someone to join you and you'll do that by helping them out with something and they'll have some motivation, like go and kill the wizard in the tower. And then after you kill the wizard in the tower, they'll be like, oh, you are going to save the world. Let me come. I also want to save the world.
Suddenly I'm convinced.
Suddenly I'm going to stick with you for the rest of the game, no matter what you do. And I always appreciate it when a party member has kind of a motivation for actually seeing things through to the end, the way in Final Fantasy VII, everyone has their own kind of personal reasons for going after Sephiroth, or I don't know, there are a lot of games like that.
And in Metaphor, I agree. They all have their personal reasons for wanting to be there and overthrow the current system of power or question it. Like, they do all have
or get
reasons.
Revenge on Louise in many cases.
I agree, though, that it feels a little like they're each doing it on their own, because your main character isn't like meeting them halfway and giving them that extra nudge. Like, right, like I would follow Ichiban into Mordor itself. Like that guy is like a leader worth following. And I do think if you can write a leader like that, it's really fun to watch a group of misfits arrange around him, especially because the characters themselves, you know, can be a little more reticent or can seem a little more like unlikely heroes. But then you kind of believe it because you're like, well, if I met Ichiban Kasuga and he told me to come get in fights with people at the mall with him, I would do it. I would be at the mall punching people, being like, I don't know why this is happening, but I'm with this guy. I'm doing whatever he says.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to write a character like that, which is why
it's hard,
a silent protagonist so often. And you just have to kind of trust that when they're saying, I don't know, in Persona 5 or like the Suikoden games, and they're like, oh, you're a born hero, you're a born leader of men.
Sure,
and they're just like staring at the other characters. You just have to kind of buy into the illusion.
Yes, it's definitely what makes that game special, and it's something that is very hard to do in general. It's like when you write a book about someone writing an amazing essay, you then have to write the amazing essay.
Oh my God, another problem Metaphor has.
Or like Phantom of the Opera, he's writing the greatest piece of music ever. You have to actually put it in there. Or Rent. These are problems that everybody runs into.
Well, that's why Tenacious D just wrote a tribute to the greatest song
exactly,
in the world.
Exactly. Or it's like that game we saw at SGF, right? That's called like a tribute to the greatest and like final boss of an RPG ever or something. I'm misremembering it. We'll bing in here, but it was the same kind of idea.
Sounds about right.
Bing. Kirk here from the future, just to tell you that the game is called The Remake of the End of the Greatest RPG of All Time. And it doesn't have a release date yet, but it looks pretty cool. You can watch a trailer for it on Steam, or I'm sure it's on YouTube too. All right, back to the show. Bing! I do want to mention Dragon's Dogma 2 as one other approach, which is also fascinating, and that's the pawn system. So that game goes the entire opposite direction, and they're basically like, you just make whatever like mindless NPC person out of clay that you want to, and broadcast them across the multiverse, and then pick up other people's broadcasts, and just make whatever party you want out of these weird, interchangeable people, some of whom sound like Matt Berry from What We Do in the Shadows, and some of whom don't, and some of whom have like really, really strange voices and look like cats. And like that game is kind of like also really successful in its way because it's not trying to have interparty dynamics that are written in the way that Veilguard is. You're not going to hear your two pawns saying anything meaningful to one another. They're going to repeat those same weird lines of dialogue.
It's
over
so
and over
annoying.
Again.
It's so stupid.
Oh, I love it though because like it's so particular to that game, and it works. It actually, I have like a real fondness for some of the pawns that I've had in my party, and even the relationships that I sort of imagine between them. Like there's a lot of space for you in that game to just look at this weird character that somebody else made that you let into your game that sounds like Laszlo, and then just be like, okay, like I really like this guy. What a character. And I think that's actually a really cool approach too. And it's really interesting that a game with that approach came out this same year with all these other games that took all these different approaches.
Yeah, and also it's a systems-based approach. It's like you end up believing in and liking your party members based on how well they behave around you in battle. And it's pure systems. And then you can kind of project personalities onto them based on that, or sort of they'll conjure and encourage good feelings in you because they're helping you in a specific way or working together in a specific way, which can be just as effective. Like Jason, you were mentioning last week when we were talking about Dragon Age about liking characters because they helped you in battle, and like that is such an important part of a party system in a game that we haven't really touched on yet, and that I was thinking about going into this conversation where I was like, just the fact that the party members have and are often designed to have different abilities than you and are complementary to you is something else that just automatically endears you towards them, even if they are also written to be intentionally sort of annoying or acerbic. That is part of what will make you be like, but this is my friends group, and like that guy has this other thing he contributes, and we all put up with him because he shoots fire out of his hands or whatever.
He's super powerful. There's a ton of characters in JRPGs. I see this a lot, like in Final Fantasy Tactics. There's this character who comes later in the game called Orlando, who is like ultra powerful. Like all these characters have these special skills, and he has like 3 different characters' special skills all in one. He's like a broken character, and that's part of the reason he's so likable is because he just destroys everything. Or like in that brief period in Final Fantasy VII, when you get Sephiroth in your party and you see how ultra powerful he is, it really makes you appreciate him as a character. That's something that we haven't talked about much, which is the way that gameplay plays into all this, and the way that you wind up finding your faves based on like what they can do for you, how good they are. Although, I mean, the procedural generation stuff is just not for me. I can never get into that game. What was that game called a while back? It was like procedurally narrative. I think it was called Wildermyth. Was that it? I could never get into that because like the characters that aren't actually written, I just can never get into. And I can never get into that kind of storytelling. AI generated games will never be for me as a result. But creating your own stories out of characters because they're super powerful or super useful, I think that can be a very effective technique to like making you really fall in love with the character.
Yeah, that's something that Tactical Breach Wizards does exceptionally well, is tell its story through mechanics. Almost all of the game takes place, in an isometric view, tactical strategy game, but there are these kind of interstitial sequences where you talk and you see the characters talk to one another. Because there is no protagonist, the conversations can be any number of them talking to one another, and you get to choose what different people say, but it's never clear who you're going to get to choose for. So you're really role-playing as all of them.
So you just have a conversation with yourself the whole time. Yeah.
Kinda.
Well, but it doesn't feel like that. It feels like you're watching these different characters talk to one another, which is kind of like the magic of that game. And furthermore, I mean, to that game's endless benefit, it just has the best writing of any of the games we're talking about here.
Yeah, it's probably the funniest, snappiest.
It's so funny.
Most
it's
personalities.
So well written. It does more with like 5 lines of dialogue than a game like Metaphor, which again I like as well, can do with like 5 hours of people talking.
And
to
sometimes
one another.
it somehow needs 5 hours to say one thing.
And it is it's a different style of writing, but it really is remarkable. So it has that going for it as well. But I think that like watching the characters do their thing in the game itself is a huge part of understanding them. And then there are even these like narrative sequences, usually dream sequences, where characters will be having a dream with multiple copies of themselves, talking to like the future version of themselves who has all of their abilities unlocked, and they'll have to clear a room together. The future version of you will be like talking shit to your current self about how useless you are. And like there's a lot of stuff like that as well. I think the XCOM games, XCOM 2 most recently, are also really great at the kind of mechanical party storytelling thing,
and encouraging
where
you to
always
project
get attached.
Personalities onto
Definitely,
things.
That one sniper who pulled you out of the shit 3 or 4 times and then died a hero. Like you kind of build those stories, and that really works for me in a way that it is somewhat procedural, but it's also authored by me because I'm the one giving them the commands and playing through the missions. So it's not just like having a procedural version of it wouldn't be like having an AI tell me a story. It would be like taking a few things that are generated by algorithms and then using them to tell my own stories. And that's a kind of a worthwhile distinction, or at least that's why XCOM really works for me.
I agree. I do think it's so different though. I mean, it's almost kind of funny to think of XCOM as like an ensemble cast or like a party based game, but it is. I mean, it is. And I like that way of thinking about it for sure.
Yeah, it's really kind of an RPG. I think I had that realization when the first one came out. And then, I mean, playing through Marvel's Midnight Suns, I actually think that Dragon Age: The Veilguard is very similar to Marvel's Midnight Suns in terms of tone, in terms of ensemble storytelling, the way the protagonist works. What was the protagonist's name in Marvel's Midnight Suns? What were you called?
I really don't
Can
remember. That's how little they matter, honestly.
Yeah, well, and it's kind of similar where
they are like a player character who kind of is like very important to saving the world, but like
aren't you
doesn't
Lilith's
matter at all.
Lilith's son?
Yeah,
son or daughter. daughter. Yeah.
Son or daughter. Yeah.
And you have a name anyways, and it's sort of similar to Rook or whatever, where it's
exactly.
Could be anybody.
But you're kind of there to watch other characters fall in love, get into fights, and like have shenanigans. Right. Like you're just also there for a fun story that's unfolding between all these other huge personalities, way huger than yours. And I think that can be really effective in a way that Metaphor is, where it's like, you just kind of don't matter. And you're just going to fade into the background.
The Hunter, that's the name.
Right. Yeah, not even an actual name.
I can't believe we couldn't remember that.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that like the sort of middle of the road feeling that Rook has in Veilguard just reminds me of that. And it's not a bad thing for me, only because
I did love that game, so maybe it's why it doesn't bug me, because I just don't mind.
Right,
that.
I really like Midnight Suns, and so I'm kind of fine with it. But yeah, it's a kind of particular flavor of this BioWare inflected storytelling, where now you kind of have this, middle of the road protagonist who kind of cruises, has a good VA and like good acting, and kind of does exciting line reads, but isn't like wildly, it's not Jade Empire. It's not those older BioWare games where you can like literally exterminate humanity or save everyone. You're not making decisions like that really. And as a result, your character doesn't have that level of variability. And then as a result of that, your relationship with various party members doesn't shift quite as much because it's a little more about just hanging out with them. I'm not sure whether that's worse or better. It does seem to be a little bit more of a modern phenomenon.
Yeah. Something else I wanted to get to before we wrap is this question that you also have here in our outline, Kirk, which is conflict always necessary? And I've kind of realized that for me it is. I really like it when the party members don't get along. I think that ends up becoming one of my favorite parts of a party-based RPG, and it can overshadow any concerns I might have about the main character being boring or uninteresting. And furthermore, I love kind of friends or enemies to friends or enemies to lovers kind of an arc in a party. Like it's part of why like the idea that Tifa and Aerith could turn out to be friends after all was something that I thought was so great in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and so surprising to me heading into it, just sort of assuming that they would just be romantic rivals the entire time, and then really surprising me with that arc over the course of the game that kind of plays out almost outside of Cloud's view or capacity to understand.
It's almost a meta thing, right?
Yeah, and I love that. And like just having the characters be at odds with each other for any reason ends up allowing for so much more storytelling to happen. And if you don't have that, I mean, I cited this as one of my reasons why I think Dragon Age of Veilguard starts too slow. I just think they should put in way more conflict up top, and then that would help. And there is conflict later that I think really does help the game. Just to have the party members be fighting with each other and have political disagreements. I mean, that's also what I think makes Metaphor ReFantazio interesting, is that not all the characters agree on everything, but ultimately they're like, well, we're going to work together, though. Even though they do have some different political leanings and totally different backgrounds and classes and all these other things. And like, that's great. That I think makes for a well-rounded party story-wise as well.
Yeah, that kind of conflict, like not liking one another and growing into friendship. It's an interesting part of FF7 Rebirth because Tifa and Aerith don't dislike each other and then grow to like one another. We just sort of assume they didn't like each other because that was kind of the dynamic and the way that fans have always pitted them against one another. So they just treated that as kind of their first act, and then they just jumped right into it with this refreshing and surprising friendship kind of right off the bat, which worked because of that meta layer. In FF7 Rebirth,
in the original, they kind of I don't know if they outwardly dislike each other, but they definitely, one of them asks, I think Tifa asks, so this Aris, like, are you two like a thing? Or like Aris asks about Tifa, or like something like that. So it's kind of implied in the first game that they have some jealousy
and
issues.
They can kind of build on that or answer the question that fans had filled in previously by just assuming they hate each other, by just being like, well, it's not what you thought, which is fun.
So I think that FF7 Rebirth also like kind of flubs a lot of character relationships. Like that one is an interesting one. Like they try to do a whole thing with Barrett and Yuffie where Barrett doesn't like Yuffie,
That's
but
true.
then like they kind of get to like.
I've just forgotten everything I didn't like.
The game kind of is memory hold for me too. But there's definitely stuff where I'm like, oh, are they trying to do a thing here? And it was never really clear. So I think they didn't nail every single one of those. But that is a really great dynamic to watch play out in a relationship is like, enemies to friends, or, learning to respect one another or meet one another on your own terms, or even better, fall in love. And, I really like that kind of thing. Well, it's I don't know. It's something that we're constantly engaging with, these big groups of people, these ensemble dynamics, and just thought it might be an interesting thing to talk about. We'll definitely get more into the Veilguard next week, and I'm sure we'll reference this conversation and all those other games too.
I'll keep thinking about it as I see more and more party dynamics playing out in Veilguard for sure.
Yeah, for sure. It is the capstone to a very interesting year in role-playing games. All right, well, let's take a break and then come back for one more thing.
You never know what you'll learn more about on the celebrity trivia show Go Fact Yourself.
For over 150 episodes, we've welcomed guests like DJ Jazzy Jeff, Audie Cornish, and Andy Richter to tell us why they love what they love, and then get quizzed on it.
And past quizzes have included some pretty unexpected topics like
reverse painting,
the perfect flip turn while swimming,
Prince's house party playlist from that one episode of New Girl,
and so much more.
Plus, our guests meet surprise experts in their topics.
Like the time we met an actual celebrity cow.
So, listen to Go Fact Yourself twice a month, every month on Maximum Fun.
Do it for the cow!
Hey, do you have a favorite episode of Star Trek?
If you do, you should also have a favorite Star Trek podcast.
Greatest Trek is about all the new streaming Star Trek shows, and it's a great companion to The Greatest Generation, our hit show about back catalog Star Trek that you grew up with.
It's a comedy podcast by two folks who used to be video producers, so it's a serious mix of comedy and insight that fits right into the Maximum Fun network of shows.
And Greatest Trek is one of the most popular Star Trek podcasts in the world.
So if you're following Lower Decks, Prodigy, or Strange New Worlds, come hang out with us every Friday as we roast and review our favorite Star Trek shows.
It's on MaximumFun.org, YouTube, or your podcatching app.
And we are back for one more thing. We have two games and what looks like a book here. So let's do a game book sandwich. We're going to start with one of the games. Maddy, what is your one more thing?
A game book sandwich. Delicious. I just wanted to say that I finished the main story of Metaphor, ReFantazio. I don't know.
I think I say Tazio. Soft
pronounce it however you want. I defeated the main story and I loved it, and I just wanted to kind of put a cap on my feelings on this game without spoiling it, and just say I think this is the first time in my life that I've completed a turn-based RPG of my own volition without it having been the product of a bet. Without it having been, and I do think that's really notable. And I kept thinking about that.
Did you finish Baldur's Gate 3?
I did. That's true. Okay. I get, but I feel like it's a kind of a different type of thing than this. Like this Metaphor is like the type of game that I feel like 20 years ago, Maddy couldn't have even imagined playing. And I
mean,
feel like it's
JRPG, isn't that
exactly,
like the big difference?
But it's just not the kind of thing I normally play. And I feel like it speaks to how much the combat is really fascinating and challenging and like variable for me, but also how much my own tastes have changed and how I've kind of realized that I actually do like a lot of things about this genre, some of which I've learned by force thanks to Jason Schreier. I do actually appreciate having to learn those historical things by playing Suikoden 2 and Final Fantasy VI. But I really love the story of Metaphor. And I know I was a little hard on certain parts of it in the discussion that we just had about the party members. The main character does not have a personality. But I really want to recommend this game just from a story vantage point, because I think what it's doing is really fascinating and it's surprising. I loved all the different story twists that's kind of unfold. There's like a series of different kinds of story twists that happen. They surprised me. I thought the development of the different tribes in the game and the like depictions of bigotry and politics were really fascinating and nuanced in ways that I just never would have expected to see. And I don't know, I really can't recommend it enough. I just had so much more fun with it and was so much more compelled by it than I ever expected to be. So if you're a listener and you're like, this really isn't my type of game, I don't think I would like this, maybe think again, because I actually really ended up digging it. I know it starts a little slow, but I'm really glad I finished it, and I really like the characters in it, and I don't know. I think it's rad. I think Metaphor is a good video game. So that's what I have to say about that.
Good video game.
And we'll definitely, so I'm almost finished. Kirk is finished.
Yeah, I think we're going to do a spoiler cast.
A Beans cast
a Beans
at
cast.
some point. I think in a couple months.
I think that'll be fun.
Yeah.
I think it'll be fun to talk more in detail about some of the specific quests and just kind of NPC storylines that unfold as well. It's very cool. And there's storylines with NPCs that aren't in your party, which I think is really neat as well, that you like can unlock like these kind of social bonds with people who are just kind of on the outskirts of your life and interactions. I think that's a really cool touch as well.
In 1 minute you're dog sitting for a lady, and next minute,
Yeah.
who knows
That one,
that might go.
wild. Good stuff.
Cool. Yeah, that'll be a fun Beans cast for sure. All right, so that's the bread. Now we get to the literary
The meat.
Jason, what is your one more thing?
Or the PB&J. Maybe it's a vegetarian sandwich. I don't know.
No vegetarian. This is meat.
It's it's the turkey and ham. It's in one of those Italian subs with like
Those are good.
the
With like
spicy
toothpicks in
peppers
it.
and
Hold it all together.
Yeah, delicious. I'm reading a book called The Unseen World by Liz Moore. Liz Moore wrote God of the Woods, which is a popular book that came out earlier this year. And I talked about this as my one more thing a couple of months ago. And I'm reading this new book by her, and it's really, really good. It's a really cool book. And so the story of the book is it's about this woman, Ada. Part of the time she's a woman, part of the time she's a 12-year-old girl, and it's about her relationship with her father, who is this quirky dude, this kind of AI researcher in the 1980s who homeschools her by bringing her to his lab every day, and is kind of like socially bizarre and is just kind of the strange dude. And it's about her relationship with him and what happens to that when he starts deteriorating mentally, and then she learns that he is in the beginning stages of Alzheimer's, and then you kind of you follow the progress of her life, and it zips back and forth between the 1980s when she's 12 and the kind of late 2000s when she is a grown up in Silicon Valley, because where else? And it also tells the story of the AI program that he was working on with her, and her kind of feeding it with conversations and stuff like that. And hey, as it turns out, and this is kind of like the inciting incident, so to speak, as he is deteriorating, it is revealed that his entire life was a sham, was a lie, and like was not what it seemed. And she has to like simultaneously deal with like his Alzheimer's and her own kind of like life and like being raised and being placed in school suddenly for the first time ever at the age of 12, while trying to figure out the secrets of his past and like why he lied about his past. And it's really fascinating and super compelling read. She's a phenomenal writer, Liz Moore, and I'm really enjoying it. Not quite finished yet, but almost there. And the twists and the turns along the way have been very fun. Really enjoying it. Really good book.
Cool.
Nice.
The Unseen World, it's called.
Yeah, man, there's a lot of dementia stories out there right now, and I find them hard and also kind of healing in a way that I'm sure a lot of listeners who have a parent with dementia can relate to. Like Slow Horses did it. Thursday Murder Club has a really like involved storyline with one of the characters' spouses has dementia. Yeah, man, it's kind of everywhere, or it feels like it's everywhere. But anyway, that sounds like a good story, and maybe I'll check it out.
Yeah, it always resonates like when you know someone or like have struggled with like a family member dealing with that sort of thing. It resonates.
Yeah, that experience in particular, it's a very particular experience. So to put some bread underneath all that delicious and tasty ham and salami, what was it? So we'll put some nice rye under there with some mustard on it. My slice of bread is a little slice of bread called Call of Duty Black Ops 6.
That
Cool.
is
Heard of it.
It's bread holding like a bunch of machine guns.
Yeah, it's tactical bread, guys. It's tactical bread. It's got some Kevlar plating and it's ready for action. Yeah, I've been playing this game because I saw enough people saying that it's pretty good that I thought I'd play it. It's on Game Pass. You can just play it. I'm playing on Steam. And when I say I'm playing the game, I mean I'm playing the single player campaign.
I've heard that's very good, incidentally.
Yeah, I'm not one for multiplayer Call of Duty, so you'll need to listen to a different podcast to get opinions about how the time to kill has been tweaked on the whatever submachine gun. So yeah, I've been playing through this game. It's really funny that this is the 6th Black Ops game. I don't remember the last one of these that I played. It's been a long time since I played any Call of Duty campaign. I skipped all those Modern Warfare reboots. Didn't play. There was like, I don't know, Black Ops that was in the future, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
Most of the Black Ops games are about the past. Like they were kind of Vietnam era, Cold War era, like paranoid spy thrillers. And then at one point there was a Black Ops game that took place in the future. I remember that. There was also, that was around when they did Advanced Warfare, which that was one with Kevin Spacey.
Right.
There was Infinite Warfare where they were on the moon with Jon Snow and a robot and shit. I played some of that one. But I remember, I think bouncing off that one, didn't really like it.
This series is insane.
I know.
There's so
it's
many
wild.
of them. It's just wild that we're on up to Black Ops 6th. I kind of remember
that's just what
4,
they're calling it.
because I think 4 had the 4 hash marks instead of the IV.
Well, technically, Kirk, we're up to like Modern Warfare 7 or 8.
Oh,
It's
no,
just
but
that they're,
no,
like,
I mean, right. Of course, there have been a million of the Call of Duty games in general,
Keep putting
but
them
like
out.
Black Ops as this, like what used to be Treyarch's like signature series, I guess still is, now is on the 6th game, which just
Right.
time is moving along. Anyways, yeah, I don't want to bury the lead any further. This game is really fun. It reminds me actually of Machine Games' Wolfenstein games. It has that same kind of rhythm and feeling. It's
Yeah.
by far the most enjoyable and kind of just well put together Call of Duty campaign I've tried in a long time, qualified by the fact that I skipped a lot of the recent ones. But there were a few in there, Infinite Warfare among them, where I'd start and I'd play a little bit, and then it would just be so railroady. You're always in these shooting galleries, and it's just loud and like machine guns.
And there'd be a big set piece and then another shooting gallery and then a big set piece.
And then you're just in a hallway and there's like guys leaning out and then you shoot them. And I was like, this is boring.
Time
Like,
Crisis 2 style.
well, right. Like I like a like Far Cry style first person shooter. I love games like that where you're like circling around and like picking your vantage point and like sneaking in and using stealth and like triggering alarms and then sneaking back out and letting guys chase you. And like all of that stuff is really fun. And Call of Duty just typically doesn't really do much of that. However, Black Ops 6 does do a fair amount of that. And furthermore, it's just, at least from what I've played like 4 or 5 hours. I'm like 5 or 6 missions in. It's just it's a pretty fun and pretty dumb story that I'm having a good time playing through. So this is set in the 1990s during Operation Desert Storm, during like the first Gulf War, which do not let you think that is going to lead to any kind of a political statement or any criticism or even commentary on that war.
They endeavor to have none in these games.
No, they're not interested, and they have not been interested for a very long time. So like, that just kind of is what it is at this point. You show up, you're in the Gulf, and then like immediately the first bad guys that show up, they're like, it's Pantheon. And Pantheon is like this private military, like spy group that works for bad guys. And those are the guys you fight like the whole time. Occasionally you'll go into Iraq.
Oh, so you're not actually fighting like Iraqi?
No.
Like,
and I'm doing
Republican
a mission right
Guard.
now, I guess, where I'm fighting like Saddam's soldiers. Like, so he has mentioned like he has hired the whatever shadowy group to like give him weapons or something. So like it's in the background, but it's not like, you're not like a soldier on the ground. And it's not doing the thing that like Modern Warfare did, for example, where you're popping between 2 different protagonists. So older Call of Duty games, you would be one guy in like the military front, like you're just fully like a grunt next to a tank with a machine gun just fighting armies. And then you're also like a British SAS agent where you're sneaking onto subs and doing like covert operations. And like they get to kind of modulate their pace by switching you between characters. In this case, you're just one guy, a person case. You don't have a name or you don't speak. It's always this way in Call of Duty. Like all the other characters talk.
Kind of like the metaphor ReFantazio main
It's
character.
a real
You're fully
metaphor
silent though
situation.
in this. But what's interesting is just the structure of the game and all of the variety that's put into it. So you're kind of like, you were working for the CIA, but then it becomes clear the CIA is compromised, so you have to like go rogue. And it really feels like one of those new Mission Impossible movies. Like basically like you were in the IMF, but now the IMF is compromised, so you're disavowed. And
there's a mole in CTU and you have to figure out how to torture it.
And so you're in this absolutely beautiful mansion. I mean, like natural wood trim, all original, dude. Like you would not. This place is
beautiful HGTV episode.
Really, the vibes of this place are beautiful. It's like a 1970s mansion that's kind of a little decrepit and now it's the 90s and like no one's been there in a while, and you're exploring it and there's like you can use a UV light to find secrets and unlock more things, and then all your buddies hang out there, and as you play through missions you recruit more buddies and then you go and you like talk to them. So it's got that feeling of one of those Machine Games Wolfenstein games where part of the fun of the game is just you have this big cool kind of ever expanding hub that you're just walking through, and it's so beautiful looking and just kind of nice, and then you talk to people and you like choose questions to ask them and they sort of answer your questions and you have conversations with different characters even though your character doesn't talk, and that part of it is just cool. And then the missions themselves are also pretty cool. Like there's a lot of sneaking, there's a pretty good stealth system. I'm doing a series of missions right now that's like kind of like Far Cry. Like it's a big open map and you have a car and you drive around. You know, it's not like Far Cry. It's kind of like Uncharted 4 where they give you those sort of open areas and you have a car, and it's like still, it's not a Ubisoft game. Like it's not a totally systemic simulated thing. It's still kind of controlled, but it's open and like allows for some flexibility with how you approach things. I think that's really cool. And I guess my last thought that I'll say is that I've been playing it at the same time as the Veilguard, and it's just taking me back to that kind of two-hander gaming that I haven't done in a long time because I haven't played a Call of Duty in a long time. But I used to really do this, especially when I was just kind of a gamer and like wasn't writing about them in the kind of mid-2000s. I would play a Call of Duty campaign as a just mindless fun thing, and then also be playing some big RPG that had also come out in the fall. And the games have such different rhythms. They're so like, you know, they just are totally different type of game that depending on what I'm in the mood for, I just go to one or the other. And they've really been kind of pairing well together and making me very nostalgic for that. So anyways, yeah, I really like it. I think if you like first-person shooters and like single-player campaigns at all, and you have Game Pass, like check it out at the very least. Like it's worth giving a spin. It's pretty cool.
And so I'm just hung up on this point a little bit. So is their response to the criticism that has been made in the past about like Call of Duty games just having you shooting like Arabs and brown people just to have like a special ops like mercenary group? Is that their way of dealing with that?
Yeah, this is what this is like what action movies have been doing. This is the Top Gun movies. It's always like some mysterious private group that you're fighting.
No, it's just so funny. Well, because it used to be like, oh, you go in and you shoot like
you just shoot brown people,
like Eastern Europeans,
or
like you whatever. Yeah, that if you're in a Middle Eastern country, you just shoot. Yeah, it's just so. I mean, these games, the way they like the way they bend over backwards to not be political in any way, it's just extremely funny.
I guess, yeah. I mean, like you're still shooting the Republican Guard, like you were shooting Iraqis in this game, and it's, you know, you're gonna feel about that the way you'll feel about it. I mean, most of the game is this like Tom Cruise Mission Impossible movies, so it doesn't really feel like they're saying anything at all. They're very consciously trying not to.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of how they do it, is by just introducing so many non-historical aspects to the historical fiction, such that you're like, well, this isn't even based in reality anymore, so I don't know what it's saying. Like that's kind of their own
and
way
honestly,
of dealing with it.
In my opinion, it's for the best. Like,
it's like, do we want them to say anything? I don't know.
Probably not. Probably
just
not.
let us just play through a dumb action movie. It's fine. Like I'm just exhausted at this point of like hoping for anything else. Like I'm like, cool, there's like a cool assassin lady and she wants me to help her kill a bunch of like mafia guys somewhere in Eastern Europe. Great. Like this is fun. I've got a remote control car that kills people. Like that's kind of what I'm there for, or at least what I'm enjoying about it. Anyways, pretty fun game, and yeah, kind of a return to form, at least for their single player campaigns. Raven Software, I believe, did the single player for this game, and they've made some pretty cool games in the past. I don't know how many people are still there or how much things have changed, but it's cool to see them getting to do another one. All right, well, that is a long episode. It's like we've been putting off dealing with something else in the world that might be making us anxious. So we'd rather sit here and talk into our microphones about video games.
That's the energy this episode has.
Maybe this moment can just last forever.
I just want people to know it is 5:47 p.m. on the East Coast right now. Polls close. Polls start to close in 1 hour and 13 minutes.
And then the counting begins.
Yes.
And that could last.
Deep breath.
For a while.
Deep breath, everyone. We're gonna get through this together, one way or another. All right. Well, I will see. Come hell or high water, I will see the two of you next week.
So true.
Louise won.
Bye.
Triple Click is produced by Jason Schreier, Maddy Myers, and me, Kirk Hamilton. I edit and mix the show and also wrote our theme music. Our show art is by Tom DJ. Some of the games and products we talked about on this episode may have been sent to us for free for review consideration. You can find a link to our ethics policy in the show notes. Triple Click is a proud member of the Maximum Fun Podcast Network, and if you like our show, we hope you'll consider supporting us by becoming a member at MaximumFun.org/join. Find us on Twitter at TripleClickPod, send email to tripleclick@MaximumFun.org, and find a link to our Discord in the show notes. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
Maximum Fun,
a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows.
Supported
directly
by you.